Hello everybody, it is I'm So Cutie and I'm back with a card tech. So we are in the week of DLC Bologna. I've been playing in semi-high MMR lobbies. I've been playing a lot of Blurple, a lot of Green Blue, and a lot of Purple Steel. Obviously some of the top 3 decks. I've also been playing a little bit of Amber Steel, but I just really do not enjoy that deck that much. But I've been starting to see Kida pop up. I've been testing with it, I've been testing against it, and I can say that this card is a blue breaker. It is just so good at becoming such a snowbally card. I know when this card was first released, people did not really like it, but let's get right to the reasons why it's amazing. So, again, I am around 1360 to 1410 MMR, so that puts me at like 240th, and then the margin is super small, so it's like 240th to like 120th. Again, I've been playing like an assortment of decks. I've been really practicing mirrors, and I somehow always get mirrors. So I am like popping between so I've been masters. Like my highest is like 1430 at like 90th, but I've been popping in and out of diamond and master, especially with finals week. I just haven't played as consistently, but this is like where I am. Just to let you guys know, I've been doing a little bit worse too, so that's kind of a thing. So we are reaching the peak of all the decks. So like I said before in this video, the meta pool, we're really only gonna be seeing card techs, counts, and things like that change. I don't think there's gonna be huge overhauls for lists that are gonna be winning this next DLC. And like I said, like Kida popping out of left field and being in every single list in the high MMR right now is absolutely crazy. It's dominated. High MMR and top cuts are being dominated by this. We are seeing a little bit less Amber Steel in top cuts. It is just not performing as well up to this weekend. But it is just really blue, right? Every matchup that you're going to get into, every matchup that you really hate, every matchup that you don't want to see is going to revolve around blue. You don't want to see Blurple. You might want to see Blurple if you're playing aggro, but in reality, I really don't want to see Blurple. I hate playing Blurple and playing against Blurple. I actually do enjoy playing Blurple. I just hate playing the mirror a lot. Super grindy. But again, this will be like 70% of probably any local top cut and DLC top cut and any major event top cut for the rest of the set, I believe. It's like for top 16 cuts at CCS, top 16 at SSG, top 16 or 32s at, I believe it was Stockholm, the CCQ and the EU, all these events. They see like 11 out of 16 just run blue. It's either blue green, blue purple, or purple steel, right? We also see Dumbo a lot, but again, blue is just a very good color, and it always has been. Back when Ruby Sapphire was around, it also was just too much. And Kida, even back in the day, I used to play her a lot, and it used to help me a lot in these blue grindy matches. So up to the first list, this is where I would slot Kida. It keeps the deck completely consistent, and you just kind of slot in at 2. Maybe even 3, depending on how much blue, again, you expect to see, which is probably a lot, so honestly, I should have bumped this up. But it keeps the deck fully consistent, and it has that middle piece to just absolutely snowball, and I'll go into the reasons why. I do believe this card is pretty amazing. Again, here's a green-blue list, just a little bit more, and a little bit heavier on Kida. Green-blue can actually abuse Kida really well with your welcome. If they can't remove your cards in blue matchups, very typically they cannot remove your Clarabelle. So the Clarabelle almost goes down for sure, right? If you go little Clarabelle, ramp into Kida 100% will be able to sing your welcome for this big Clarabelle. And if you have 2, you're singing 2. That is crazy. If you do not have it, Kida also lets you ramp just a little bit faster. Obviously, it takes a turn for it to become active. But the problem is, if you don't need to become active, like in terms of like Clarabelle coming out, Hades coming out, Basil coming out, because they're also playing a very slow game of ramping at first, you're just gonna get really ahead. You'll definitely won't feel it until you're probably at like 11 ink and they're at like 7 still, but you'll be executing so many more moves on your turn that there's it's just no possible way for your opponent to come back at that point, and it's just a super snowbally card. If you don't clear it on first trigger, you're probably losing the game if it's a blue mirror. So it's just an inevitable piece, right? So in blue steel, like Scar and stuff, it can come out, and if you need to search for things like Tink or that French guy, the French guy that does 3 damage. What is his name? I don't know. Tinkerbell and Hades, and just setting up like wider boards, you know, whatever you might want to play in blue steel. And then again, you can set up the Infinite Unknown. So for times where like they set up Dumbo and because they don't have Genie and they still want to play Elsa the next turn or Belle, you just can't really be punished. And if they tap to draw, you do actually punish it really well. You could also just have the Basil and the Elsa combo and whatnot, or Belle and whatnot, but basically it's just like an emergency piece that it'll always be able to go off. There's also a really good candidate to be a singer for second star, which is super good, especially with the ward, especially if you have 2 active and then just like a Tipo. There's just like a left field, like, oh, my opponent's going to be trying to ink and blah, 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 but second star. Also, when you ink to the point where you're like at 12 and 13 and you're basically just inking useless cards that you know that you won't need, like develops and stuff. And like the late game when you have like a lot of cards in hand, I'm not saying develop is useless, but you know what I mean. You draw 5 cards off the second star and you can play 10 things out of your hand. That's pretty broken. That's actually really broken. And again, the You're Welcome is just a very good piece to have. It's always punishable. So if you're gonna tap and take the ink, right? In matchups where like they might have Calhoun or whatever, like, sure, they can take it, but then they lose a piece for later on, and you already inked, so now you can go to 7 on that next turn, and they kind of, like, stalled themselves, right? Secondly, like, if they want to double dive with, like, Genie and Elsa, there's going to be damage on board, so you can either take the full turn to just play Finders and, like, even accrue more cards and then go to your 7 anyways, or you can, like, just play Belle and punish the damage around, which a lot of people do in mirrors. Also, there's the thing with Fire the Cannons being super popular at the moment. Fire the Cannons just fits the math for a lot of things. It clears both the Genie and the Elsa for really cheap cards. And if you can still find a draw engine on top of that, it is just such a good way to punish warded characters like this that get you so much cards. Again, the Clarabelle, if they can't clear this, that means they can't clear Clarabelle. And if they can't clear either one, you're going to be snowballing super, super hard. So Kida in itself seems underwhelming, but the thing is, there is a lot of situations it puts you into, and if the opponent really does not respect it, because that was me when I first saw it, if they really do not respect it, the ability to snowball is just so crazy. On the second trigger, you're just setting up so much to the top of your deck, and having 2 more ink, it's like skipping turns, right? You're gonna be playing develop. You're gonna be looking at 2 cards, right? It's like you skip 2 turns, and now you're deciding what card of that was probably completely useless, and you're making it ink anyways. So now you've inked a turn ahead. And now when it's your next turn, right, because you put the card back, you're on now that second turn where you're drawing, and you basically skip the entire turn just because of this trigger. You do that twice, and you do that 3 times, you do that 4 times. You're skipping so many turns and prepping so many pieces faster into your hand if you're making correct decisions that it's almost crazy that people do not run this at 4. Now, obviously, there's a lot of competing slots at the moment, and there is a lot of aggro, which it doesn't fare too well into. But in terms of, like, blue on blue, Kida is just absolutely crazy. She just does super well. It's just about skipping turns and accruing so many good cards in your hand. And you're like, oh, my God, my opponent had 7 Hades. What could I do? Well, it's actually because he played Kida, and he's triggered it 7 times without you without you banishing it, you know? The idea of top decking the answer, right? Like, oh, he has Hades every time. Oh, he has a Visions and then the 500 ink to go into Hades again. It's just crazy. Well, this guy has looked at probably 10 cards off the 5 triggers of Kida. He's produced so much ink, and there's only so many cards in hand that he has. So many cards in deck, that he has, that Visions and Develop has a super high likelihood of hitting things like the Elsa, the Clarabelle, the Basil, the John Silver, the Hades. Every single one of those cards are exponentially at a higher percentage to be seen because of people triggering Kida and not respecting it. Because if I'm telling you, like, if this goes off 2 or 3 times, you are seeing and producing so many cards that it's just a snowball. Like, if you let Kida trigger multiple times, you are likely going to lose if you cannot close the game out. Obviously, there are times that decks do not care about it. There's going to be purple steel, there's going to be dogs, there's going to be amber steel. They don't care about Kida. But sometimes, like, whatever. Like, if you're going to get into top cut and 70% of the room is blue, you are going to have the easiest time of your life if you're not playing Kida mirrors. Kida is the bomb at doing what she has to do, and with limited removal in this game at the moment, it just does so well at prepping you. It's just so good. Again, if you have so much ink, you're going to do so much in a turn. You can visions into an Elsa or Hades infinitely earlier than your opponent can. There's turns where I can double Belle, double Elsa, double Genie. I can go triple Genie if I wanted to. Draw 3 cards, produce 3 bodies. That is just so broken. If they're starting to catch up and play Elsa, play Hades, play it Under the Sea, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to come back, etc., right? Well, I don't really mind, right? Because I'm just going to play 5 more cards the next turn and then aggro you out because I already have this lead and you never responded to my Kida and I have 20 more ink than you. That's just crazy, right? Also, playing Kida and then getting your pieces removed and whatever, and then you only have like the heads held high in your hand or whatever, and you just set up an Under the Sea to be grabbed, right? Like an Ursula could strip it, whatever, but now you can draw into the Under the Sea. So things like Ursula and Bend to My Will for mirrors becomes sort of irrelevant because Kida's just able to give it to you off the top. So if you had 0 cards in hand, it does actually help the card economy a little bit, and you don't really have to ink out of your hand if you are already in the position where you're winning very, very hard. It's kind of like Donald in the math where you're kind of drawing, and it's actually a little bit better than Donald just because it's getting rid of the bad card, and the bad card in the situation of the 2 cards. You can be really unlucky and see 2 Hades. GG's, like, that's on you, but you know what I mean. Like, you're just skipping so many turns, you get to filter so heavily, and again, if they just do not respect it, you're just producing so many resources. It's just so good. Again, just going into the pros, it's super viable. It's super good into every blue matchup. It is so good. Ward is pretty relevant. It can't get tapped. It can't get banished until it at least goes off once, and if you go off once, it's kind of just the difference between being on the draw and on the play. The game becomes just a little bit more even, which is really nice, honestly. Math like that's kind of just what blue is in general. It's just kind of like an evener of play draw. Inkable techs, again, inkable techs are just so good in Disney Lorcana. Having something that you just cannot get rid of in your hand is what makes it bad. So Kida isn't bad, and she isn't like the S tier, but she's definitely very good and good enough to be in at 2 or 3. Again, more ink equals more moves equals dominance, and dominance means you win. You're skipping a turn every time it triggers. That is a very important math thing that you have to realize in Disney Lorcana, and card games in general. Being at an advantage to where you're going through your deck so much faster is really good, and sometimes it seems like bad, like oh, my opponent keeps triggering Kida and he's like 15 ink. Well, the top of his deck is loaded with Hades and Elsa's. No need to Nunez and mark your cards. You are just playing Kida, right? So, again, makes longer matches just way more favorable for you. You're just producing, again, so many resources that just cannot be produced any other way. Especially when it comes from the hand, like Sail and Teebo. It's very different. It's why How Far I'll Go is just such a good card, right? So yeah, and again, the decks that you're putting this card into is just, they remain consistent. You don't really overhaul the list to kind of adhere to it. It actually complements lists pretty well, and again, at 2 or 3, and when you're drawing so much in purple and in Clarabelle, it's kind of just dismissible if it exists and you don't really need it, right? Because if you're winning and you really don't need it, or it's not on curve or whatever, you can just ink it. That's fine. It's completely fine. It's not really dead. And if you had nothing and you top decked it, it's not even that bad either, because playing it and then prepping the next turn after that isn't as bad either, especially if you're not losing as fast, right? It does take 1 turn to activate, so that is a really big con. And then hand economy I initially had as a con, just because like you're not playing anything else like proactive, like Dumbo or Genie, or like Clarabelle shift targets and etc., right? But when I really think about it, you're not inking out of your hand, and at some point in the game you don't need to ink out of your hand anymore. It also really complements Radigan. That's been going into lists. And then so it is actually kind of better for your hand economy. And then it is just the competing slot with a lot of 4-drops. 4 is probably like a power spot in a lot of blue. It will always be the power spot in a lot of blue. So it's just a competing slot. You have to be just a little bit smarter when you're putting it down, especially in an unfavorable matchup. But yeah, I just really wanted to make a very quick video kind of just highlighting this super fun tech. Kida's been super fun to play with, super fun to see, super fun to get smoked by and teach me the ways. So I definitely won't take credit about this existing at all, but I am definitely here to highlight it and break down why this card is good in general. I do believe, I have a very strong belief that a blue deck this weekend at DLC will highlight this card very hard, and it's going to go crazy on stream. So don't be the one that loses to Kida, be the one who plays Kida. Again, thank you guys very much for tuning in, and I hope you ink yourself to top cut.